Cold, rainy weather is expected to blow in tonight, and local homeless shelters are getting ready. The partial federal government shutdown continues, with national parks and monuments closed around the country. How long could it go on?
'Cause I've got you under my skin.
And this was one of the stories that got under our skin in 2018. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Susan Murphy. A new storm is blowing into San Diego County on this Christmas Eve, and San Diego shelters are getting ready for it. Father Joe's and Connections Housing are expected to shelter 300 people tonight as part of the city's inclement weather shelter program. The emergency shelters open for cold or rainy weather. Father Joe's was already going to be very busy this evening, serving Christmas Eve dinner. San Diego can expect to see stormy Christmas Day. Brittany Boyer has a quick preview of tonight's forecast.
Thanks, Susan. We have a high-impact storm here as we get ready to head into Christmas that will bring travel disruptions with rain, strong winds, and also lowering snow levels. We're looking up to about a quarter of an inch of rain out toward the coastline, and then even more than that as you head your way farther to the east. It's not just going to be the rain, but also the wind and the snow as well. You can see we have winter weather advisories up into the mountains and also wind advisories as well. It's going to be a difficult time as we head into the overnight hours and into Christmas Day here. About 1 to 3 inches of snow above 5,000 feet, and we'll be talking more about the strong winds with this storm. We'll send it back to you, Susan.
The partial government shutdown still continues, with the president demanding funding for his border wall. Here in San Diego, the government shutdown means Cabrillo National Monument is closed to visitors. People hoping to take in the views were greeted today by signs announcing the closure. It's a disappointment for Chicago visitor Vatsal Shah. The monument was part of a long list of national parks he and his family had planned to visit.
We are doing a long road trip, so we are going from here to the Grand Canyon, to the Zion, to Sedona. So if all national parks are closed, it's going to be a waste of a trip, I guess.
The monument's website says it was shuttered Saturday for the safety of visitors and park resources due to the lapse in federal funds. Some federal officials say the shutdown could stretch into the new year. An Iraq War veteran with PTSD is spending Christmas in jail for leaving threatening voicemails on his doctor's machine. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh talked with the vet's family, who says the VA should have put him in treatment.
Eric Benson had left the Army after the first Gulf War. His wife Elaine said he re-enlisted after 9/11.
He saw the plane crash a second time because we're under attack. I have to do something. So he re-enlisted.
She says her husband was a different man when he returned from Iraq in 2010, where he was injured by a roadside bomb. He was in treatment at the VA in San Diego when he left angry, threatening voicemails for his provider.
Because he has traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress syndrome that does not allow him to properly think as we do. It doesn't have that risk thing that, oh, I shouldn't be saying this, I should not be saying that. He doesn't have that.
In 2016, the VA pressed charges against Benson. He became one of the first veterans diverted to the Veterans Treatment Court in the federal court system in San Diego. He successfully completed treatment at the Aspire Center, one of the VA's premier programs for treating post-9/11 veterans who suffer from PTSD. Then, in November, he left another round of threatening voicemails after he ran out of his medication and he couldn't get it filled by the VA for 5 days. Now he's in federal lockup for the holidays. His attorney, Alex Fuqua, says the VA should have understood Benson's condition.
Just have a thicker skin because you are dealing with, at the VA, you are dealing with people who have gone through severe trauma, and sometimes expressing yourselves while under the stress of that trauma and continued trauma becomes difficult.
U.S. Attorney Adam Braverman issued a statement saying, "We will vigorously prosecute threats of violence against federal employees. No person shall face threats of violence simply for doing their job." So for the moment, he remains in federal lockup. His wife, Elaine, says she's had a difficult time explaining what happened to their two young sons.
It's hard. My kids doesn't know, they're too young. I told them Dad is getting evaluated for they know that he has PTSD and traumatic brain injury, and that he's been gone because of that.
Last week, the defense asked for a continuance so they could have an expert witness available to testify about Benson's condition, even though his attorney says the VA is well aware of Benson's PTSD and TBI. Benson is expected to stay behind bars until his next court hearing, January 10th. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
There are still questions about an in-custody death involving San Diego police. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman explains.
Aaliyah Jenkins was arrested in November. San Diego police say during the arrest, Jenkins became sick and vomited. Officers called for paramedics, but SDPD said Jenkins told them she only had an upset stomach, so those paramedics were canceled. Jenkins was then taken to police headquarters, where SDPD says she fell into medical distress. Officers began life-saving efforts, but Jenkins would not recover. She later died at the hospital. SDPD believes she died of a drug overdose, but right now it's really unclear. Homicide detectives are investigating what happened to her. The police showed Jenkins' mother video of the arrest, and she believes Aaliyah was denied medical treatment. Jenkins was arrested in La Jolla, which falls under Councilwoman Barbara Bree's district. At the last council meeting of the year, Bree spoke directly to Aaliyah's mother.
You have my commitment that I will work with Council Member Montgomery, who will be chairing our Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods Committee, to make sure that you and your community get the answers that you deserve.
It's unclear if an autopsy has been completed by the county medical examiner. The records are sealed and video from the officer's body-worn camera is being withheld. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
SDPD homicide investigators have shared some findings with the district attorney's office, but have not yet turned the case over. The body of a 7-year-old girl who died in U.S. Border Patrol custody has arrived in her native Guatemala. Jacqueline Call and her father were part of a group of migrants arrested in the New Mexico desert earlier this month. The Guatemalan government has asked the U.S. to investigate her death. A Honduran family that became the face of a migrant caravan was released on parole late last week in San Diego while their asylum proceedings unfold. The image of Maria Meza and her children went viral a few weeks ago. They were running from tear gas fired by U.S. authorities at the border. They were allowed to cross into the U.S. on Friday night after being detained for 3 days at the San Ysidro port of entry. Meza was given a GPS ankle bracelet and will have to report to immigration authorities starting in January. They plan to stay with relatives in Baltimore. Tijuana residents remain divided about the migrant caravan. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero explains.
Paloma Zuniga is a Mexican-American activist who goes by Paloma for Trump. She has more than 47,000 followers on Facebook, and she's been selling Make Tijuana Great Again baseball caps.
I'm probably the most Mexican Trump supporter you will ever find.
That's questionable given her cross-border lifestyle. But still, Zuniga has become the face of the Mexican resistance to the Central American migrants in Tijuana.
I'm a nationalist, just like President Trump, and I'm a firm believer in taking care of our people first. So that's been my message in Tijuana, that we should take care of our Mexicans before we take care of other people.
Zuniga has been accused of harassing the migrants. She was part of a confrontation with the caravan that turned violent a few weeks ago. She admits that maybe they could have approached each other differently.
Especially at the time, we really weren't familiar with these people. Now we're getting a little bit more familiar with them, and we're realizing that, maybe not all of them are criminals, but...
Zuniga says she has compassion for the migrants and that she just wants people to follow the law. She didn't like that some of the migrants pushed past police barricades to get into Mexico. Meanwhile, other residents, like Jorge Santos, have been welcoming the migrants all along. He says people who oppose them don't know the love of God.
Jesús estuviera aquí en vida como tú y yo.
If Jesus was here, alive, like us, he'd do this. He'd give food to the hungry, drink to the thirsty, clothes to those without clothes.
Aquel que necesita ropa.
This week, about 200 migrants who had set up camp near downtown were moved to a shelter in Tijuana's poor eastern outskirts. Nearly all of the migrants in the caravan, about 3,000 of them, are there now, where they're less likely to provoke some of the city's wealthier residents. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
It's taken 2 years, but California is finally making some progress in improving medical interpretation for patients who don't speak English. KPBS Speak City Heights reporter Taryn Mento has the story.
State law requires interpretation services for foreign language speaking patients. Poor communication can put patients at risk and increase healthcare costs for taxpayers. But advocates say the current services are often inadequate. A bill by Toni Atkins, when she was Assemblywoman, mandated an evaluation of the services. The legislature passed that in 2016. Now, 2 years later, the state's picked a research and consulting firm to actually do the work. NIMSY Insights is expected to begin the evaluation in February and release the results in the fall. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
A new California law will ban short-term health insurance plans starting in January. The new law responds to the Trump administration's rule allowing insurers to offer limited coverage plans. Healthcare advocates say the so-called junk insurance plans are a threat to the healthcare market.
We are fearful that if these plans were allowed in California, they would destabilize the market. So not just trap people in junk coverage that may not cover them when they need it, but also raise the premiums and prices for everybody else because of the impact on the market as a whole.
Lawmakers claim short-term health plans lack essential health benefits and could deny people with pre-existing conditions. Federal officials say California must change how it issues identification cards. The Department of Homeland Security wants California to require 2 residency documents instead of 1 for issuing a real ID, the enhanced card that will be required for travel. Federal officials will still accept previously issued real ID cards. Republican lawmakers at the state capitol say they're fed up with the continued dysfunction at the DMV. The DMV says it will begin asking applicants for 2 proofs of residency in April. And as we mentioned earlier, a storm is on the way in San Diego. So if you're driving anywhere tomorrow, give yourself some extra time. Brittany Boyer has tonight's full forecast.
Thanks, Susan. As we head into tonight, we're going to have the winds picking up, the clouds will be increasing, and we'll also be watching for that rain to develop. So if you're any of those late night travelers tonight, give yourself a little extra time, especially as we head into tomorrow. A low 55 tonight in San Diego, down toward Chula Vista. We're looking at a low in the mid-50s here. And this is the snapshot for your Christmas day. There will be some travel disruptions with some snow and icy conditions down toward the Grapevine there. Now, if you're going toward the coast, we are looking at just plain rain. About 1/4 of an inch of rainfall there. And then the farther inland you go, that's where we could see up to 1/2 of an inch to even an inch of rain. And it's not just about the rain. You can see that we do have the snow on the map there. So winter weather advisories out there for locations above 5,000 feet. That's where we'll pick up about 1 to 3 inches of snow. And then in this purple color, that's where we have wind advisories, and we're talking about winds gusting up to about 45 miles per hour out toward the mountain crests and also into the deserts. That's where we could see winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. So this is right around lunchtime on Christmas Day. You can see some of these sustained winds right around 25 miles per hour. So perhaps even some isolated power outages as well. So be prepared for that and be prepared for the unsettled weather. You can see all the clouds that we have here from Oceanside on south, with also that rain as well. And later this week, storm system moves out of the picture and we will be looking forward to some drier weather. Unfortunately, the more impactful weather this week is right around the holiday. So for the coast, you can see your extended forecast will allow for a few showers on Christmas Day, and then it's still a little bit breezy into Wednesday. But otherwise, it's looking good as we head into the end of the week and also into the weekend as well. Inland, we're also going to have a few showers out there. Temperatures staying in the 60s, but cooling off as we get closer to the weekend there with highs in the low 60s. Into the mountains, that's where we will have some showers. Also very windy conditions, so keep that in mind into tomorrow. And into the desert, it also stays windy, and we'll see a slight warm up with temperatures Wednesday into Thursday. We'll send it back to you, Susan.
As we close out 2018, we're looking back at some of the stories we covered this year. Last summer, Speak City Heights reporter Taryn Mento showed us how residents are using a state tool to preserve their culture.
Hi. You might not notice AA Fashion in a small strip mall off bustling El Cajon Boulevard in San Diego's mid-city area. The shop that sells vibrant garments made in Vietnam is tucked in the corner among a cluster of Asian businesses, including eateries, a hair salon, and a market. But owner Ann Chan, who didn't want to appear on camera, says lately she's seen more tourists wandering into her shop.
I see you look like stranger, and they say, oh, I am come from different state.
She says the strangers tell her they've come to explore the city's Little Saigon cultural and commercial district, which is where her operation sits. The city formally recognized the 6-block concentration of Vietnamese-run businesses in 2013. And now neighborhood groups want state recognition, too. The El Cajon Boulevard Business Improvement Association's Beryl Foreman is part of a collaboration of City Heights organizations seeking a California Cultural District designation for a walkable, multicultural region that would include Little Saigon.
Well, City Heights has always been touted as a place where there's an immense amount of diversity in the way of 40+ languages spoken. So that's something to be celebrated.
Some say even hundreds of languages are represented in the lower income community that's historically been the first home to newly arrived immigrants and refugees. But Foreman says seeking the cultural district isn't just about commemorating the area's unique blend of Asian, Latino, and African cultures. It's also about ensuring it isn't pushed out. The designation could help the community build a brand it can push to protect and build upon to boost revenue for existing businesses.
Then working towards economic development strategies that enable people to stay here.
Displacement was a concern for the Barrio Logan neighborhood that's rich in Chicano art and history. Miguel Alatorre of the nonprofit Logan Avenue Consortium says the community had experienced a boom from the group's events along the main corridor, but there was worry it could have adverse effects.
Our biggest concern was that because we were being so successful on Logan Avenue, for example, that the businesses that were thriving would be forced out. That the artists that were becoming well-known or really active in the community would be, forced out because their rents went too high or they couldn't afford it.
Maintenance Assessment District Manager Marisa Casani worked with Alatorre and other groups to submit the application. Barrio Logan earned the cultural designation last year.
Barrio Logan is a renting community. We don't want the rents to skyrocket and displace families. So maybe through this cultural designation and promoting preservation of everything. Culture means residents, businesses, arts, new businesses coming in. So we just want to have some sort of control.
Columbia University doctoral student Jenna Dublin is studying similar efforts all over the country. We reached her on Skype.
I'm seeing that groups are interested in looking at the ways that district designation could have a role in slowing down some of the physical changes in their neighborhood.
The urban planner says she's seen communities in New York, North Carolina, and elsewhere specifically leverage these tools to combat gentrification. She says the recognition may bolster community organizing to help groups lobby against changes they may disagree with.
Maybe the process of coming together to get a designation kind of brings people who haven't really interacted with development plans, with private developers or governments to the table and for the first time, and that's another way to just have more of a feeling of political and local power.
Alatorre in Barrio Logan says that's one of the benefits he saw from the cultural designation.
It's good that we're all on the same page, whereas before a lot of us didn't even talk to each other back then, But now it's definitely it's been a blessing, to tell you the truth, for the community, I think.
He admits the certification hasn't solved all the issues facing the community. Rising rents are still a concern. But he says the cultural district designation gives the community a united voice to approach property owners. In City Heights, Foreman says conversations around the district application have already brought organizations together to benefit the community. At a past meeting, the founder of a nonprofit coffee shop mentioned he was facing a deadline to fund a solar project for nearby high school kids. The City Heights Business Association offered him the money on the spot. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
I'm Nick Schifrin. Tonight on the NewsHour, Indonesia searches for hundreds of missing people following a deadly tsunami that struck without warning. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Music can be a powerful tool to spark a memory, and it can help people with dementia to become more aware of their surroundings. Earlier this year, KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov introduced us to a man working to bring music to seniors, one bus ride at a time.
Tell me, when will you be mine?
Now.
Quando, 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 quando.
My name is John Flores.
We can share a love divine.
I'm 66 years old. I feel like I'm 25.
Oh, my darling, tell me when.
Because when I sing, I just feel like a youngster.
When will you say yes to me?
I work for the Jewish Family Service for the On The Go program, which is transportation solutions for older adults, which is funded by Sandag. Thank God I have a job.
You ready, sir? Oh, yeah. Looking good.
I pick up clients all the time.
Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome.
And basically, I'm a singer. So what usually happens when I take people to events, what I do is do a little song and dance for you.
Every moment's a day.
So then before you know it, they see me say, hey, you got a song for us? And I said, I just so happen to have a CD. And I throw it into the CD player, and the buses have a great sound system. I crank it up a little bit, and I sing and I dance for them.
I can't wait a moment more.
And then before you know it, people ask me my name, and I said, well, you know, the thing is, my name is John. And I'm the only singing bus driver.
Singing bus driver strikes again.
And they asked, why don't you come over to perform at our center?
Johnny P.
Tell me why is it so?
So after that, I'm a driver, right? But I can't be performing all the time. But so I just started getting squeezed into the program until eventually said, you know, this guy, we love him. So they kept having me do it every month. So now I'm all booked for 2018. I work with people that have memory problems. I don't even like to use the term dementia, because they're loving. I'm getting choked up. Wait a minute.
Yeah, the wanderer.
I always hear them come up to me and say, I love you singing. And it just makes me feel like $1 million. I feel deeply gratified because what I'm trying to do is instill a quality of life to these people, because they're just like, you know, they're just like children, but they're like my mom and dad. I want to see them laughing. I want to hear them happy, and I even have them singing and all, and clapping, and it's a very joyful situation. We're all celebrating together, and they're like a family, and they start coming out of their shell, and they feel alive. It's better than staying at home. I can relate to them. I am a senior. I'm no Justin Bieber or those kind of youngsters. My whole thing is singing songs that they can relate to.
Solitary man.
If I sing a song like a Frank Sinatra song or Tony Bennett song, instantly it wakes up something inside their system. And they just become animated and jumping and clapping and moving. It's a fantastic feeling at the end. When I'm done, they come up to me, they shake my hand, they tell me how much they appreciate it. You know, what better reward can you get? I'm officially applying for America's Got Talent, and I want to give my best shot and see where it takes me. If they had like America's Got Senior Talent, I feel comfortable with that. Then I compete with other people with my age bracket, but I'm doing it for them.
You're going to sing for us again?
The people that I love the most here, they're all cheering for me. They're looking forward to, don't worry, you're going to win and all that stuff. And to me, it's like hit or miss, sink or swim. It doesn't matter to me as long as I go and I do it and make them proud. I never imagined this particular point in my life that I'm doing this, and I'm happy. I'm so happy.
And you've got me under your skin. Thank you. It's a wrap.
We checked in with Jewish Family Services for an update, and Flores was not selected for America's Got Talent. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Join us tomorrow night for an Evening Edition special as we look back at more of the big stories of 2018. Thank you for joining us. Merry Christmas. Have a great evening.